Okay. I'll go on for a little bit, and then I'll take a break and get some of your questions. First thing we need to know is basically, are you using the harness or not? If you're doing the harness, you're doing biofeedback. Now, this is a biofeedback device. It's sold because we're going to be able to measure the body electric, and then we're going to, from those measurements of the body electric, the machine's going to interface electrically through the harness to try to correct those things. So if you're using the harness, then you're doing biofeedback. And if you're going to be doing biofeedback, you really should be certified. You should get an international license. You should get fully trained in order to do biofeedback if you're going to be seeing patients. Even if it's just friends and relatives, it's just a good thing to do to get some type of certification, a third-body person to review what you're doing, take some tests, and get certified. Now, if you're not using the harness, if you're doing subspace, then what you're doing is prayer work. You're doing spiritual healing. That's completely legal. It's not on as good a legal footing as biofeedback. Biofeedback is a medical art that doctors and insurance companies will pay for. Doctors and insurance companies don't pay for prayer. Okay? So if you're doing that, if you're doing spiritual work, but don't expect to be able to, get doctor referrals, etc. But that's fine. But now I have an entire new legal course called the Quantum ESP, Entwinement Subspace Prayer Program, ESP. And you should get into that and learn, because there's a whole different set of wording. Because now we are not electrically interfacing to measure the voltage and the amperage resistance of these things. Now what we're doing is we're getting that through a subspace system. We're not getting it directly electrically. So we are now not doing biofeedback. We don't want to tell people we're doing biofeedback when we're not. Okay? What we're doing is a type of prayer work. Because now the prayer wheel inside the system is going to be doing these things. Now let me talk about these values, because these values that we're talking about here are largely meant as electrical values for biofeedback purposes. If you're doing it in subspace, then these values are a little bit more, what's the word? You take to be taken with a grain of salt, okay? Because now the system tries to make an estimate, but we get a much better measure of these values if we are now using the harness properly. Also, you get a much better measurement if you also are using the SOC, if you're asking those questions, because those questions are key for the machine to make a good, honest appraisal of the body electric. If you smoke and don't tell the machine, then the machine does not understand the burden that you're under because of the cigarettes. You're already compromising oxygenation because of that, and you're not going to get a good score. The machine needs to know if you have fillings, mercury amalgam fillings, because you have a battery in your mouth if you have 2 or more pieces of metal in your mouth. Those 2 or more pieces of metal will create a battery. And the system needs to know how many batteries you got in your mouth so that it can help to adjust to get a good reading of the body electric. 2 silver amalgam fillings will create a battery, and there's a plus and a minus, and now you're creating voltage, so the machine needs to know these things. Knowing if you're drinking, water, stress, the other questions in the SOC are all important. And basically, the SOC does 2 things. It helps to improve our data, but also the SOC helps to interface with the patient so that they can understand responsibility. Responsibility that their behaviors have impact on their health. I was at a meeting here not too long ago here in Budapest. A bunch of doctors got together, what we call expats, people from America, England, etc. We had a big party for these people. And I'm sitting there talking. Some people asked me what I do, and I said, well, we make a biofeedback device. And some of the medical doctors giggled over biofeedback. But there was an insurance guy. There was an insurance guy from one of the big insurance companies in America And he stood up and said, listen, the reason insurance companies like biofeedback is the first thing a biofeedback person does or should do is a lifestyle inventory. That's our SOC, finding out what behaviors are. So the very first thing that you should do is start telling the person they are responsible for their health. Their behaviors, their past, their choices reflect on their health. He said the next thing you do is that instead of putting them on long-term drugs, you put them onto a machine and they start to accept more responsibility that they can change their body electric and they can change their stress levels and other things. So now that's the second thing. Responsibility is all over this biofeedback. And the man from the insurance company then said, with you doctors, each and every one of the patients you see gets put onto a regime, and us, the insurance company, we have to pay for that medication that they're going to now be taking for years and maybe the rest of their life. And with the side effects, that creates more disease. And now with biofeedback responsibility, we're seeing less. So insurance companies, we like biofeedback. We think biofeedback is a good thing. Now back to biofeedback. Let's get to these scores now. So we see the SOC index number. What we have here with Patty's test case person is 186. So this person has an awful lot of behavioral problems. I'm wondering why you don't have the patient's name. I hope it's not because some idiot, John Gilbert, told you not to put the patient's name in there.
Desi, we just put the test case. The name we used was test case up here in the left-hand corner.
So that we wouldn't see a name today?
Yeah.
Okay, great. But normally you do put in names, right, Bill?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Can I tell the story about how you always used to put in Bozo the Clown? And I told you one day, Dr. Nelson, there's a real Bozo the Clown. And you said, oh, I don't care. He needs a treatment today anyway. Remember that?
Because I used to always, when I was working in the lectures. But you're right, Jesus, I should be asking Bozo's permission. Yeah.
That's right. I've reminded you of that.
Yep, you're right, Bill. So now I pick a completely fake name if I do that. But normally when we do demonstrations, we try to have a real person involved, okay?
Of course.
So now the SOC, so we have somebody here that's fairly sick, I'm assuming, because there's an awful lot of problems in their lifestyle. Am I right, Bill?
Yes, this test case, I had used it before for teaching, so yeah, we've got a sickie here.
Okay. Now, we can see that their voltage, the V here, the last visit was 62, today it's 67. That number 62 at the last visit was the last voltage measured when you close down, not always the first one. So when you start a test, like today you're starting a test and you're starting at 67, but maybe when you finish today it might be 72, you know. There is a button at the top that you can find out at the end, because this is not hard and fast numbers. These are changing because the machine is trying to improve your VARHOPE with every operation. Everything it does is trying to improve your body electric. This VARHOPE is actually your body electrical vital signs. If you can think of blood pressure and pulse rate as vital signs, but I think that even more powerful is your body electric. What's your voltage? Voltage is connected to your amperage. Is connected to your voltage is connected to your adrenals. And if you are weak in a low number, this person probably has adrenal weakness. Because I see a number of 67. I see an amperage of 78. That's a little higher. In the last visit, the amperage was 72. And the amperage is connected to the brain hormones, the indolamines, where the voltage is connected to the catecholamines, and those are your adrenal hormones. Where the amperage is brain, so this person has a little bit more power in the brain, but still there's a weakness, because any of these numbers, when they drop below 80, When the numbers drop below 80, then there's something significant going on. Now I see next that the resistance is a 19. When resistance drops so low, this person either has organic degeneration, like arthritis or cancer, or this person has a mouthful of mercury, or this person has some metal in their bones. There's something that's dragging their resistance down, meaning that all of the electrical energy in the body is being transported very weak. So the resistance is really low here. So I think that would indicate that there's probably some degeneration to work on, or possibly some other things. I'm looking down below in the purple, and it does say explore risk of degeneration. So while we've been doing this this test, through the calibration and through the test, it found regulatory dysfunction none. It found in one category all clear, but then it did find a risk of degeneration in this one. Now the cellular vitality, 6 plus is normal, and below 3 is chronic, and this person has a 7. This is cellular vitality index is made by a measure of the electrical factors, taking in the idea of impedance, phase angle, phase response, and there was some other system a long time ago, Bill, that was measuring this, and you asked me to put these things in, so I made those electrical values from there. The major thing you have to understand about everything I'm talking about here is that the computer is automatically trying to fix everything. So there's really nothing in here you have to really get heavily focused on. Now, the next H is hydration, 66, it's below 80 again. This person's dehydrated. And on their last visit, they were well hydrated, had an 84 at the finish. And then the oxygenation, 47, that's also very weak. They're not transporting oxygen well. It's not an extreme risk, I can see, but this person is obviously not an athlete, and somebody who might have difficulty walking up 5 or 6 floors. Am I right?
Yes, Bozo is not walking properly. Too much makeup.
You should take off the big shoes.
Right. Okay.
Now, the resonant frequency that we see here, 3008, this is a value from the magnetic and static ability of the human body to interface and work. And this number is basically fairly normal. The perfect reading would be somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000. And because it's 3,000, it didn't drop below 1,000. It's not so bad. Today's accuracy is 96%, the relative accuracy you see there. That means that what we're going to be getting on the test screen is probably going to be good indications, because we got a fairly accurate system. The reactance speed is, it took 10 measures. It took 10 measures to get an accurate system. And this means that the speed of today's is about 1/93rd of a second. You see the 93 there. So normal people react to their outside world in 100th of a second. This person is reacting today at this point in time at 1/93rd of a second. That's very, very fast. But the computer needs to know how they react. How fast do they react? So that we can tell what's going on. So now, and then the system is going to be recalibrating. Sometimes persons fall out of calibration, and their reactance speed changes during the test. And then you'll see that the system will change different colors on a test screen, and it usually takes it an extra 20, 30 seconds to recalibrate, because it's always trying to measure these things. We see proton pressure and electron pressure both at 70. This means that this person is a little alkaline. slightly alkaline. And that's not bad. So the proton pressure, in fact, the perfect proton pressure is 74. So their acid-alkaline balance today appears to be good. And what else? I think I've covered all the numbers. Phase angle here. This is a 7. It's normal. And phase angle means as we are throwing electrical energy into the body, it's coming back reactive. So that was healthy today. The phase response is a 470, and we can see that is between 500 and 300. So there's a concern in the phase response and the reactance. There's a little concern in the reactance, and the impedance is normal, just a touch weak. So we can see that this person's body electric is operating about 70, 75% in total.
Professor Desi, what would be another way of explaining the impedance number? Like if you impede traffic, you're blocking traffic. Is there any relationship there between blocking and the meridians, or what would you say?
Oh, yeah, of course. Absolutely. Let me explain. I'll give you the scientific explanation first.
Okay, good.
When you have resistance, you take a resistor out of your radio, okay, and you apply electricity to flow through it, and the resistor resists the flow of electricity, and that's called resistance. And that's the R word, the R letter, and her resistance is 19, okay? Now, when you're measuring resistance in a human body, then there's also a little bit of influence from the static. The human body has water in it, and there's a little bit of capacitance and inductance, which is static and magnetic energy. And they combine to make to kind of disrupt the electrical signal of the resistance. So we call that impedance. It still is impeding the flow, but in a body electrical system, there's also other events happening that increase the flow. And the combined measure of the increased flow with the resistance is known as impedance. So for all practical purposes, impedance and resistance are the same word. In this case, what we see is that her impedance is a little low.
And Professor Desiree, would the phase response have anything to do with how major organs cooperate together or work together? Is that some kind of a...
Absolutely. I would say that this person is not operating. This person is definitely not operating at full strength. But this person today is operating at 70% level. And for most people, 70% level is probably a good day.
These days, yes. Well, listen, there's a few questions. Would you like to take a half a dozen questions or so?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Sherry says, on the scalar generator, what numbers can we use and what do they imply? For instance, 2,400,000 and then 3,300,000.
Show me the scale.
On the scalar generator. Should I go over to the scalar therapy? Is that what we're talking about, Sherry? What other scalar input can we input? Suspecting here.
You can close that, Bill.
And then go over to the therapy. And go up to scalar. Is this what you're talking about? Is this what she's talking about? I don't know she's talking about the scalar generator. Do you know, Professor Desi, what she's referring to here?
Does she have an inductor?
Let's see. She'll probably answer. Let's move on. Marie says, when rectification is over 100, what does that mean?
Okay, what's rectification now? Rectification was not on that red panel, but let me tell you what rectification is. You have a little radio or TV, and you're bringing in signals from the outside, and you want to watch it on your television set, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Inside your television set is a rectifier. It takes all the crazy signals, and then it tries to make the signal that you want to watch clean so that you can watch it. Now, old people like me and you, Bill, we used to know when they had bad rectifiers.
The rabbit ears.
Oh, yeah. I remember how somebody would have to stand by to hold the antenna.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Well, what they had was they did not have the science of rectification has developed, so that now, and that's the reason we can have these little telephones that go from post to post, the little tracking stations, because now we can take signals that before we wouldn't be able to rectify. Now we can rectify them. And what rectification means, improve the system, improve the electrical flow. And now that's what happens when we rectify. So when we get a rectification that's above 95, that's very, very good.
I just did that, Professor Desiree, on the rectification panel here. Can you see?
Yep.
This
When
was
you're done that with the patient, you do that rectification. And basically it's there to help clean up any of the problems that maybe were there. Now the big question is, how long does this rectification last? There's the rub. We've rectified this patient now, but judging from her SOC, she's probably going to go catch a burger and a candy bar on the way home. Immediately, the mercury amalgams in her mouth are starting to produce electrical energy, disruptive. She might not be exercising, might not be drinking enough water. She might have a ciggy before she gets to the car. All of those type things. So where those type things are now going to interfere with the body electric, and sometimes this rectification will last for a week in a really healthy person. Sometimes this rectification will last for an hour.
And Professor Desiree, when it actually goes over 100, is that more an indication of the quantic nature of the human being versus the Newtonian concept?
No, that's just because I didn't fixate the system to cap at 100.
Mm-hmm. So is over 100 better than 100 then?
Yep, it's just the statistical point. So basically, the way that these numbers, Bill, are what we call soft numbers.
Right.
So I say that the temperature in your room is 75, and the temperature in your room now is 74. You can measure that. That's a hard number. A hard number is a measurable number, 74, 75. Now, if I say the probability of rain today is 74, the probability of rain today is 75, you see, well, then you say, 74, 75 probability, there's no real difference. I'll take an umbrella.
The probability. Well, this is very good. We've got some more questions here, Professor Desiree. And what about when you see resistance numbers that are minus? What are we saying there?
Well, that means that that's really bad. That person's got some really bad metal and etc. And the reason I let it go to the minus is, as we're measuring, sometimes the system can be really, really bad. And if I couldn't just make it zero. I couldn't, I want to show you, the doctor, the therapist. I want to show you there's a problem here. And if I just let everything go to zero, the difference between 1 and 2, you might not think is a big deal. But as soon as you start seeing, minus 10, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah, minus 35 sometime with a mouthful of metals. Oh yeah, I've seen that for sure. Well, okay, now here's a good one. Is titanium implant different from silver amalgam? And I imagine what she's asking as far as metal interference qualities.
Well, is it different? Well, it's more expensive.
Yes.
Titanium is still a metal. It does, yeah, it's still a metal.
Hmm.
When you get work in the teeth, you really need to go to ceramic or some of the other different things. There's very many very good alternatives today,
Hmm.
rather than having to put metal into your mouth.
Hmm.
I don't think there's a dentist that I know here in Hungary. We have probably some of the best dentists in the world. Very inexpensive. Many people all over the world come here to get their teeth fixed, and they could get an airplane, get a hotel room, and still save money. And they get what I believe is the best dentist by far. And just as a little point, the worst dentists in the entire world are in England. Don't go to England. Get your teeth fixed.
By the looks of the teeth over there, I'd have to agree. Wow,
Oh, geez, terrible. It was.
mouthful.
I,
Um,
I, I don't know what the real. I saw this TV show about the dental system uh, in England, and it was worse than watching Friday the 13th. It was a horror. Unbelievable. At any rate, titanium is a metal, and I don't know why all of our dentists, here are using non-metals, but there are still doctors in America that want to be sold on the metals. I don't know what's going on.
I think titanium, Desi, would be used for doing an implant where they put a post in, make sure the bone is strong, then they put the tooth or the cap over that.
That's true if they're going to be doing something into the bone,
Hmm.
uh, building a post. Yeah, titanium would be. You can't do that with a. That has to be metal. It has to
Hmm.
be a metal.
Yeah, and I think the reason for it is that it's less
We're
offensive.
talking about filling, but we're not talking about a filling.
No, no, a post for a implant. Judy asked you to please repeat the definition or description of resonant frequency.
Okay, resonant frequency, electric, is the it's the inverse of the square root of the capacitance added to the inductance of a system. What's capacitance? Capacitance is you shuffle your feet and you make a static electricity to the doorknob, right? That's static electricity. Inside your body, there's static electricity that helps to move blood and helps to work your nerves and everything. Now then, inductance is magnetic. You have an inductance coil in the starter of your car that helps to work. It's a magnetic thing. Inside the body, there's magnetic action, and inside the body, there's static action. These two factors together operate to basically determine what your resonant frequency is, which is simply the frequency that your body at this point in time is harmonizing to. Now that doesn't mean that you can still listen to different music and whatever. It's just that overall, out of these 120 trillion cells that you might have in your body or more, you're harmonizing at one level, which is called the resonant frequency. And that resonant frequency can change. Now, when the resonant frequency goes very far down, okay, that's because the frequencies go. Rod that you're talking about is a metal that would lower your resonant frequency. Uh, if you have cancer, it sucks away the resonant frequency. If you have degenerative arthritis, it sucks down your frequency. Those type things. Okay. Now, what brings your frequency up is when you start getting too nervous, psychic attack. Uh, you know, you get too hyper, too many stimulants, and you get too high a resonant frequency. But the resonant frequency is basically an indicator of at this point in time what is your body responding to or not responding to.